in the rolling hills of the sugar-coated valley, where the grass tasted of sweet lime and the clouds were made of pink marshmallow fluff, there stood the world's most magnificent structure, the everlasting chocolate factory. This wasn't just a building made of bricks and mortar. Its walls were crafted from solid, dark cocoa. Its windows were panes of clear sugar glass, and its tall chimneys puffed out thick, velvet-scented plumes of hot chocolate steam that warmed the hearts of everyone for miles around. Deep inside this magical fortress lived the master confectioner, a gentle soul named Barnaby, whose coat was the color of a caramel swirl, and whose hat was a giant upside-down ice cream cone that never melted. Barnaby was the keeper of the golden cocoa bean, a legendary fruit that was said to contain the concentrated joy of every happy memory ever shared over a box of sweets. The mental pain of the outside world, where children sometimes felt lonely or tired after a long day of school, was completely unknown inside these walls, because every room was designed to act as a sanctuary of pure, sugary peace. Barnaby spent his days in the room of liquid gold, where a massive river of molten milk chocolate flowed over rocks made of honeycomb and peanut brittle. The sound of the river was a deep, rhythmic glug-glug that matched the slow heartbeat of a sleeping child, creating a natural sedative that made the very air feel heavy with relaxation. Beside the river grew the toffee trees, whose branches sagged under the weight of golden wrappers that crinkled softly in the breeze, sounding like the gentle turning of pages in a favorite bedtime book. The unique power of Barnaby's chocolate was that it wasn't just for eating, it was for dreaming. One beat of ease, midnight mintrafu, would make you feel as cool and calm as a winter's night, while a nibble of his sunrise strawberry cloud would fill your chest with the warmth of 1,000 hugs. The mental pain of a bad day would simply melt away like a piece of fudge on a warm tongue, leaving behind only the sweet, lingering tastes of happiness. One evening, as the silver moon rose over the chocolate factory, Barnaby invited a group of weary young travelers to enter the hall of floating marshmallows. In this room, there was no gravity. The children could float among giant, pillowy clouds of vanilla and raspberry, drifting higher and higher until they reached the ceiling made of shimmering stars. There was no noise here, only the soft sound of floating and the sweet scent of peace. Barnaby told them that the chocolate factory was a place where they would always be safe, and that the golden cocoa bean would always keep their dreams bright. The story of the factory was a long, winding river of sweetness that led through the peppermint forests and over the Fudge Mountains, where the snow was made of powdered sugar and the air felt like a soft, velvet blanket. The unique beauty of this world was that it never ran out of joy, and it never demanded anything but a quiet heart and a sleepy mind. The mental pain of the past was replaced by the magic of the present, and the children felt their eyelids growing heavy as the scent of roasting cocoa beans wrapped around them like a warm, brown hug. Beyond the hall of floating marshmallows, Barnaby Butter-Cream led the weary young travelers through a heavy door made of solid, dark chocolate into the Lollipop Garden of 1,000 sunsets, where the ground was covered in soft, crushed graham cracker sand, and the trees were tall, spiraling candy canes that reached up toward a sky made of violet grape soda mist. In this garden, the flowers weren't made of petals and stems, but of crystalline rock candy that hummed a low, musical vibration every time the peppermint breeze brushed against them, creating a rhythmic sound like a million tiny silver bells ringing in slow motion. The mental pain of a long, busy day, the noise of the playground, and the rush of the world outside began to dissolve as the children sat on giant gummy bear boulders that were as soft as velvet cushions and as cool as a mountain spring. Barnaby pointed his caramel cane staff toward the river of infinite fudge, which didn't flow with water but with a thick, warm ribbon of liquid cocoa that moved so slowly it seemed to be dreaming its way across the landscape. The unique power of this river was that its scent was a magical blend of toasted hazelnuts and creamy vanilla, a fragrance so heavy and comforting that it acted as a physical blanket for the mind, tucking every stray thought into a bed of sweet silence. Along the banks of the river grew the marshmallow willows, whose long, drooping branches were draped in strings of white and pink fluff that dipped into the chocolate water, soaking up the warmth and releasing a soft, glowing light that illuminated the garden in a hazy, golden aura. The travelers felt their limbs becoming heavy and relaxed, as if they were made of soft taffy stretching in the sun, and the mental pain of any sadness or worry was overwritten by the sheer, sugary magic of the atmosphere. Barnaby whispered a story about the great cocoa moon, a giant sphere of white chocolate that rose once every 100 years to shower the factory in a rain of silver sugar dust, a dust so fine and so peaceful that any child it touched would fall into a sleep filled with dreams of flying over mountains made of whipped cream. He led them deeper into the licorice woods, where the paths were paved with smooth black cherry discs and the air tasted of cool wintergreen, a refreshing chill that cleared the spirit and prepared the soul for a night of total rest. In the center of the woods stood the gazebo of whipped wonders, a structure made entirely of spun sugar that looked like a giant, delicate snowflake. And inside, the floor was covered in a thick layer of toasted coconut that felt like a warm cloud beneath their feet. The unique beauty of the chocolate factory was that it never asked the children to be anything but themselves. There were no chores here, no clocks ticking, and no shadows that didn't taste like blackberry jam. The mental pain of the past was being polished away by the gentle friction of the peppermint wind, leaving behind a spirit that was as clear as a sugar pane window and as light as a lemon drop. As the hours of the night stretched onward, the script of their adventure became a long, flowing ribbon of tranquility that wound around the Fudge Mountains and tied the earth to the gingerbread stars in a knot of absolute sweetness. Barnaby sat with them in the gazebo, his voice dropping to a low, melodic hum that mimicked the bubbling of the chocolate fountains. And he told them that the factory would always be there in their hearts, a secret sanctuary they could visit whenever the world felt too loud or too gray. The story of the chocolate factory was a living prayer for the joy of every child, a rhythmic and eternal lullaby that ensured the golden cocoa bean would keep their inner light burning bright, even in the deepest sleep. Beyond the licorice woods, Barnaby Butter-Cream tapped his caramel cane against a wall of solid peanut brittle, which slid open to reveal the entrance to the Caves of Caramello, a hidden underground sanctuary where the stalactites were made of dripping butterscotch, and the floors were pools of soft, golden toffee that yielded under every footstep like a warm memory. In these caves, the air was thick with the scent of roasted pecans and burnt sugar, a heavy and grounding fragrance that wrapped around the travelers like a massive velvet quilt, pulling the last remaining traces of the day's mental pain from their tired shoulders. The unique power of the Caramello Caves was the echo of the honeycomb, a low-frequency hum that resonated through the amber-colored walls, sounding like 1,000 distant cellos playing a single, unending note of absolute peace. Barnaby led the children to the crystal sugar grotto, where the walls were lined with diamonds made of compressed rock candy that pulsed with a soft, rhythmic blue light, illuminating the darkness in a way that didn't wake the eyes, but instead invited the soul to drift deeper into the velvet shadows of the earth. In the center of the grotto sat the throne of the Toffee King, a giant armchair made of soft, chewy fudge that was so comfortable it felt like being hugged by a giant teddy bear made of cocoa and cream. The mental pain of any bad dreams or scary thoughts was completely neutralized by the warmth of the grotto, as the children realized that the chocolate factory was not just a place of sweets, but a fortress of safety, where the darkness was always kind and the silence was always sweet. The travelers felt their breathing synchronize with the slow dripping of the butterscotch from the ceiling, a rhythmic drip, drop, drip that acted as a natural metronome for their drifting minds, leading them through the long-form script of a 3-hour journey into the very heart of the factory's secret power. Barnaby whispered about the gingerbread sun, a massive cookie that lived at the center of the earth and provided the warmth for all the chocolate rivers to flow. And he told them that its heat was the same heat that lives in a mother's hug or a best friend's laughter. The unique beauty of this subterranean world was that it was a place of total sensory indulgence, where the taste of cinnamon and a touch of velvet caramel combine to create a state of absolute and unconditional relaxation. As the night reached its deepest point, the script of the chocolate factory became a shimmering tapestry of golden light and dark cocoa shadows, weaving a protective net around the children that would stay with them long after they woke up. Barnaby sat on the edge of a fudge boulder, his voice dropping into a whisper that was as soft as powdered sugar, telling them that the golden cocoa bean was now glowing with the light of their own peaceful thoughts. The story of the chocolate factory was a living promise of a happy ending, a rhythmic and eternal lullaby that ensured the sugar-coated valley would always be a place of rest for the weary and a home for the dreaming. The mental pain of the outside world was a distant echo, replaced by the steady, warm pulse of the Caramello Caves and the infinite sweetness of a night without end. The final transition of the sugar-coated valley began as the silver moon dipped behind the Fudge Mountains and the first soft rays of the gingerbread sun started to glow from the center of the earth, turning the dark cocoa sky into a warm wash of cinnamon orange and apricot jam. Barnaby Butter-Cream stood at the mouth of the Caramello Caves, his caramel cane glowing with a soft white light that signaled absolute completion of the children's 3-hour journey into the heart of peace. The mental pain of every worry and every tired thought had been fully processed by the rhythmic glug-glug of the chocolate rivers and the steady hum of the honeycomb walls, leaving the young travelers in a state of crystal clear tranquility that felt as light as a lemon drop and as strong as an oak tree made of peppermint dot. The unique power of this final awakening was that it wasn't a sudden jolt into the daylight, but a slow, melting transition where the dreams of the night became the strength of the day, ensuring that the sweetness of the chocolate factory would stay in their hearts like a hidden pocket of starlight. The long script of their adventure was now a golden ribbon tied around the soul, a permanent reminder that there is always a sanctuary of whipped wonders and velvet cocoa waiting for them whenever the outside world feels a little too loud. The mental pain of the past was gone, replaced by the scent of fresh-baked cookies and the warm hug of the rising sun, which didn't burn but instead provided a gentle glow that tasted like vanilla bean and toasted coconut. The happy ending was a horizon that was always soft and a world that was always kind, where the golden cocoa bean had finally shared its secret. That true sweetness isn't something you eat, but something you are when you are finally at rest. Barnaby watched from the balcony of the everlasting chocolate factory as the children drifted into the deepest, most restorative sleep of all the sleep that comes right before the most beautiful dawn of their lives. The story was ended, but the magic was eternal, a rhythmic and steady heartbeat of chocolate and caramel that would continue to play in the silence of their dreams forever. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.